And here we are, Mr. Connor Campbell himself. Oh, the crowd can't handle it. They fucking love it. How you doing, my man? How you holding up?
Yeah, man, not too bad, you?
Yeah, decent, decent. So, obviously, we'll say training. We'll put that all pre-COVID for anyone listening, anyone who wants to snitch and be one of those guys. But so, first of all, congratulations on the brown belt, because again,
Thank you very
I
much.
know that was still fairly recently. But one question with the brown belt, I
Yeah.
was quite, I don't know, curious on. You had 2 bars on it. So normally, for people aren't aware of that,
Okay.
normally means like a sort of instructor kind of way of doing it.
Yeah.
Do you coach yourself? Well, not yourself. Do you coach?
I teach at Andy Roberts. Yeah, so I teach a few classes there. Yeah.
So when you're teaching in itself, what's the group you're teaching to? Is it beginners? Is it advanced? Is it just a normal gi class? What is it?
I take one intermediate class and then I take one beginners class as well. So one's more fundamentals kind of stuff, and then the intermediate's gi. So I'm teaching I introduce people into like the lapel game. So I might teach them some like basic worm guards, stuff they might encounter when they get to like their purple belt. Just that kind of thing, really.
When you said when they encounter it, I think almost on the streets, like, in case someone's lapel's a bit loose and they want to start some more nonsense, you fucking wrap them up. The rest of the worm, they don't know what to do with themselves. And here we are. But so with your coaching in itself, how systemic are you in that sense? So are you very much, we have to learn this sort of general timetable, this general structure? Is it, okay, we're going to do techniques and build on that in like a action reaction kind of format? What sort of way do you like to teach different groups?
Generally, so the way we run it at Andy's is we'll do maybe a month on one position. So might be a month to 6 weeks. First 2 weeks I'll show attacks. So I'll show the positions. Say if we're doing worm guard, I'll show 2 sweeps, 2 submissions kind of thing, show you how the position works. Next 2 weeks will be on top. So stuffing it, getting rid of it. And then the last 2 weeks kind of be any questions people have in it, stuff that they've seen, researched, want to know. I'll run it like that. So they should have a brief understanding for the end of the month, 2 months on the position that they can now go off, work on and kind of make their own.
So with that, then, am I right in saying, so say you take a, I don't know, traditional worm guard, it's a bit of an oxymoron, traditional worm guard, but anyway.
Yeah.
But like you get the position, say, okay, this is what they do if they come forward, backwards, left, right, different directions, their reactions. Okay, by the end of the month or over 8 weeks, you're like, okay, I've got an understanding of these general reactions, then we move on to another position. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. So yeah, we'll do, so say we're doing closed guard, we'll do bottom,
Better example,
attacks that you can do, top, we do passing, and then like I say, any questions that people want to know.
Now, regards of the way you've learned and developed anyway, how have you found more beneficial for your, I don't know, understanding as such? Say if you see a new position, are you drill, rinse and repeat? Is it just keep trying at sparring and getting smashed till it works? Is it asking questions? How do you find you like to learn and like things actually stick with you?
I think, so me and Jay talk about this all the time. So I think you get 1 or 2 people normally. You either get someone who's seen a move, they'll see a move and they can just do it off the bat. Or you get the kind of people that can see a move. It takes them like 6-7 times to get it down, but once they've got it down, it's pretty solid. And luckily, I'm one of these guys that someone could do something in front of me and I don't have to like break it down in my head. Naturally, I can do it most of the time. So say I'm working on close guard, which I just use for example again. If Jay showed me something from close guard, normally we'll only rep it like once or twice and then I'm just straight into sparring, making it work really. So yeah, I think the answer is more sparring, definitely, for sure.
So with your general like gamer sort of establishment, obviously with the amount of years you've been training, how has the guard game itself always been something you've been quite, I don't know, naturally attracted to in the sense? Is it something you've sort of fell into? Like, how have you established your game as such?
So I started gi jiu-jitsu when I must have been 16. I'm 23 now. So as you can imagine, I wasn't as big as I was now. I think I was walking around at about 60 kilos.
So it can work probably as well.
Yeah, I'm probably like the low end of it. Well, hopefully the low end of 80 now. So it's quite a big difference. I think I got forced into the bottom game. Because I wasn't. It was called GBMMA. It's now Mavericks, run by Nick, who runs Battle Grapple. And most of the guys there were bigger than me just because I was kind of younger. So they kind of forced me into playing the bottom game, which I was quite happy with, to be fair. So yeah, I think I didn't choose like the guard life. Guard life chose me, kind of thing. I was forced
Love
into it.
it. I fucking love you
Yeah,
said that as well. But again, it's one of those things you kind of have to make it work as such. And nature of obviously with the size sort of disparity, you have to kind of either I'm going to get taken down or I'm going to sit down. And it's my choice, it's not theirs. And you sort of got
yeah,
to get a bit of your own sort of thing back. Now,
mate.
go on.
The first comp I went to, so I think the first competition I did, I was like 3 months into training. I was loving it. First comp I went to, we rocked up and I was like, oh yeah, this is cool, blah, blah, blah. Got into like the little arena bit and I was like, what's everyone standing up for? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, why is everyone standing up? Like, we start from knees. And literally my coaches looked at each other and they were like, this before I joined Andy's, they're kind of like, oh, because we've never started from standing before. And they're
Oh,
like, oh, you start standing. I was like, what do you mean? So yeah, jumping guard become a quick habit.
I mean, I don't know. It's not an unfamiliar problem, which is the problem, I think, because I think almost every single competition I've spent the night before panic watching takedown videos to then pull guard
Yeah,
anyway. I don't know why.
yeah. I
So
think
it's one of them
I
ones.
think once you like touch hands, it's just autopilot in it. Really, you'll have like a game plan kind of thing, but you know, it's like as soon as you start, as soon as that adrenaline's kicked in and you're moving, yeah, everything goes out of your head anyway.
Now, this is where I want to sort of get into, obviously competing that early on. It's almost ignorance is bliss a little bit. How did you find early days competing? Were you quite nervous? Were you just composed? Was it just enjoying it, sort of free balling it? How did you find, I like
I
competing
think I
from the
was just,
start?
I think I was just enjoying it really. I think where I was so young, um, I never. So where I was so young, there was never any stress on me, kind of thing. It was you rock up, you have fun and whatever. I was a kid at the end of the day. Whatever happened, happened. And I think because of that, I did fairly well in like my white blue belt. Just because there's no pressure. I used to love it.
I mean, that's a huge thing in itself because I used to be dreadful for competition, just bag of nerves. I don't know why. I think as if I'm watching this one shitty white belt with this awful guard pull and the terrible one-dimensional
Yeah.
triangles. And no, they didn't see me
That
then.
was literally
No one
me.
gives a
You've
fuck.
just summed me up as a white belt.
I've summed you up and me as a white slash blue belt, and like now at purple, I've finally started standing up and doing takedowns. Finally,
Yeah,
just
it's
about.
something you have to do.
But it's one of those things in itself. But regards of after that comp realizing, okay, did you ever want any of the entertain the stand up in itself? Was that okay? Just get my position straight away, not even entertain it. Like, how did you find? I don't know, establishing that side of things. Because again, if your gym's not really around that sort of side of it, like, how did you find establishing a standing game in inverted commas? Because guard pull is not really a standing game, is it?
Um, do you know what? Until a few years ago, so I reckon about two stripes into my purple, I'd only ever done gi. I hated no gi with a passion. Like I'd never do it. If it was on at the academy, Jay'd be like, right, just jump in, like it's an extra session kind of thing. I'd be like, no, no way, I'm not doing it. So until then, so I obviously made my switch from academies and everything. Until then, I had no interest in wrestling or anything because at that point in time, I was still quite young. I wasn't very knowledgeable. I was just kind of like, well, pulling guard's working for me. If I can get close guard, I'm finishing most people. Like my spider guard was pretty good. My X guard was pretty good. Yeah, kind of that naiveness. I was happy just to pull guard. The wrestling thing was just kind of like, if I need 2 points, like I'll pull and sweep.
But this is the irony in that is that with having ignorance is bliss, you kind of get away with it a little bit because some people
Yeah,
sort of what's the word? It's like paralysis by analysis. You're sort of so overkill, like I don't know. It's just overthinking everything. Whereas you're like, okay, I'll get my guard. I've won this fight already. Sorted, no problem.
yeah, literally. Do you know what? Literally, that's what it was like. If I could get close guard, I remember there was a time I was on Battle Grapple. I had Jay and someone called Cameron. We call him Seabass. He's another purple belt from Andy's in my corner. We both pulled guard. I got to close guard, looked at Jay, and Jay literally looked at me and went, "You've won. It's fine. Chill out." So exactly that. It was kind of that. If I could get there, it was my calm spot. Yeah.
But this is sort of it. it adds to itself in itself, because when you start getting the results, you believe it more and more, and it starts working more and more. And again, the
Yeah,
confidence in what you're doing versus the actual experience in what you're doing, it's just the perfect Venn diagram where like what actually works, and it's just the
yeah,
dream. So how
yeah.
come you chose academies in the
Don't get me
first place?
wrong.
Then is
It
this
comes to an
kind of,
end.
well, this is
I
kind of
said,
it.
don't get me wrong.
Yeah, you go.
Go on, go on, go.
But yeah, so with what you're saying there, you found out eventually people who could like pass guard and survive a triangle, happy days. But what sort of encouraged the change in academies then? Was this Jay specifically? Is it just things change? What caused the actual move?
So I was training at Guildford with Nick. I must have been until the end. I was 16, maybe early 17. I was doing my A levels. Basically, come to a point. I was competing. I was loving it. I basically come home one day and said to my mum and dad, "Look, I'm stopping my A levels. I'm teaching. I want to train full time, basically." I got a job at my local gym just because it was the best thing to do. So I got a job at Nuffield Health, free gym membership. It was like the best thing ever for me. And when I was training in Guildford, we had an MMA instructor who was a pro fighter. He was a blue belt. I think the highest level we had there was like a 4-stripe blue at the time, because we're an affiliate of a black belt. So when I joined Nuffield, some of the staff there were like, "Oh, cool! Like you do all that jiu-jitsu stuff. We've got a pro MMA fighter here." So I was kind of like, "Oh, cool, whatever." Because naively back then, I was like, a pro MMA fighter is like a blue belt kind of thing. It was nothing new. So this guy's come down. We were like chatting. He was like, "Oh, so I heard you do jiu-jitsu," and I was a 3-stripe white belt then. So I was like,
Yeah, I'm
I
pretty
was a,
hard.
I was a, yeah, literally, it's like, he come down, he's like, "Well, Grady," I was like, "I'm a 3-stripe white belt." And he's like, "Oh, cool. Like, what do you do?" I was like, "Yeah, I play a bit of X guard. Like, I like my ankle locks and triangles." And he's like, "Oh, cool. Where'd you train?" I started training in Guildford. And little did I know, well, I knew this was Jay, but I didn't know who he was. And he's gone, "Oh, cool. So I'm like, "So what go to you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm a 3-stripe brown belt." And literally on the spot, I just went, "No, you're not." And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "No, you're not." I'd never even seen a brown belt at that point. So that's kind of what made the swap. He was like, "Oh, I teach Andes. You should come down. Like, I'm an instructor. Come down, give it a go." And I did. And I'd never seen so many color belts before. So I said to my old place, I was kind of like, "Look, thank you for everything you've done and whatever, but," because I wanted to train full time. Like, they only had evening classes there. They did everything for me. But I was like, "Look, they're doing like 3 sessions a day, and this is what I need at the moment." So I moved straight over.
I love you call bullshit on Jay. That's so funny.
Yeah,
Like,
straight away. There was like no hesitation. I was like, "That's
bullshit.
bullshit. You're not brown belt." He's like, "No, seriously." He showed me pictures and everything. I was like, "Nah,
You got him
I'm
to
not having it."
validate the pictures. That's so good. But to be fair, if you don't know the thing with that sort of 3-shot white belt, sorry, 3rd-degree white belt, as how you mark
Yeah,
it, 3rd-degree white belt. The thing is, you don't know different. You think, okay, yeah, I've only seen blue belts. Maybe a push. That's like think of mythology. Brown belt,
I'd
nah.
literally seen. So at that point, I'd seen my instructors in Guildford, which were high ranked blue belts, and then our head coach, which was Ivan Mayfield down in Brighton, who was a black belt. That was all I saw. And I'd never seen. I think I'd seen like a purple belt once at Ivan's, and I'd never seen a brown belt. So it was literally unheard of for me.
That's so funny. But again, it's it's sort of the point though. You didn't know what you didn't know. And then you go to a new
Yeah,
environment. The fact you sort of welcomed it as such, because this is the tricky part. This is where things get really interesting, where you go from your gym where you're doing well, you're competitive, you're the higher ranking ones, just getting people. And then
yeah,
you see another gym where you're now at the bottom of that pile a little bit, thinking, okay, do I want to go in my comfort zone where I'm doing well, I can stay the bigger fish in this pond, or expand to get fucking
yeah.
smashed in the attempt to get better. Now, with that move in itself, how did you find that transition to the paradigm shift to being the bottom of the rung again? How did you find that?
Um, I loved it. Yeah, obviously, again, back then I was only young, so like getting smashed was nothing. It was nothing new. Yeah, I started. I think my first role at Andy's was with Adam Ellis, and if anybody knows
Mm,
him, he's like fought on Battle Grapple. He's fought on Grapple Fest. He's like just under 7 foot tall. He's huge, kind of thing.
big old boy.
He was my first role at Andy's, and I'll never forget that. I got smashed up.
The
But
smile
no,
is
I
so
love.
wholesome.
Yeah,
How happy you are
yeah.
about it.
No, I loved it. Yeah, I think I loved it because of I had like, well, I say had, I still have this dream of like world champion, all that kind of thing. And when I got put into that environment, I was like, cool, I'm well on my way.
Now, interesting enough, obviously, the initial naivety and the excitement from white blue belt days, and now obviously you're getting stuck in with more higher level competitors again, the black and brown belts, everything else. You know, the
Hmm.
brown belts aren't really, they don't really even exist. You're now the
Yeah.
thing that didn't exist. Anyway, it's a bit of a shift in it, but now competition obviously is stepping up, and you're more aware of what's going on. What does competition
Yeah.
mean to you now? You know what's going on. It's not ignorance is bliss now. Are you still excited, still happy to do it? Are you a bit more nervous? Is it more of a
Um,
serious sort of thing? What is it? How does it change in that perspective for you?
uh, Definitely the last two. I get so much more nervous now. It's a bit more serious now. I know it shouldn't be, but kind of the whole, you get like these full-time athletes that want to make it a living kind of thing. And in the UK alone, there's some serious talent in the UK at
Mm,
like brown, purple belt still. I mean, you got people like Shane you've had on the show,
mm.
you got Jed. Yeah. So when it comes to competing now, yeah, I kind of take it more as a job now. I still love doing it, but it's more of like every loss you take is kind of two steps back and a win's only one. So to kind of keep your name around, I believe anyway, you need to do what Jed's done. He kind of he's just gone on a tearing spree, and now everybody knows his name.
I mean, this is a huge thing in itself, and this is where the whole nature of the standard for belts is going to go back up again, because you get obviously the mix of people for different reasons, but you get people like the Shanes and the Jeds, the purple belts who are tapping the black belts. But now there's
Hmm.
a lot of purple belts tapping the black belts, so now they have to start matching them against each other. So on paper, you see
Yeah,
purple belts, brown belts against each other. You think, okay, it's not the black belt super fight, but you're seeing two fucking like killers in themselves, and it keeps on going. Like the level of
yeah.
sandbaggery is unreal.
I think. Do you know what it is? I think the games have changed so much. Like, not to say anything away from anyone. Kind of back in the day, I hate to say it because like back in the day, jiu-jitsu was kind of jiu-jitsu. You could switch from gi to no gi and there wouldn't be too much of a difference kind of thing. But now it's kind of like they've both got their evolution. So if you go watch like the gi worlds or the gi euros, yeah, every other purple belt, but mate, you watch the blue belts, they're all berimbolo in, they've got the
Mm,
powers, I don't even know where they're sticking them kind of thing. And then you watch the no-gi game, yeah, well, you look what the Death Squad did to the world. It's kind of no-gi's now got the leg locks evolution. Gi's not now got the lapels evolution. And I think to be truly good at one of them, you have to pick one like Gordon has kind of thing, like everybody slates him for not being in a gi, but he's the best in the world at no gi. Yeah, you can't take that away from him. And he's dedicated his life to that no gi side. Um, I think they've got so advanced now, you really need to pick one and really be good at it. And I think going back to what you said, that's the difference between these purples mashing up black belts now. These purple belts have been introduced to purple at the stage where it's like, cool, this is no gi, leg locks, heel hooks, blah, blah, blah. Or cool, this is gi. Like Tannen, who trains at AOJ, he's kind of flown up the
mm.
belts, but he was kind of introduced at the time that it was evolutionizing. So he was kind of on that bandwagon straight away. So that's why he's mashing everyone up so good. Don't get me wrong, hard work and everything,
Mm.
but if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. And a
So
lot of it, I feel, is like the information is getting leaner and leaner and leaner. Like you're getting
yeah,
taught
for
things
sure.
that have been like tried and tested. And then you find
Yeah,
your own versions of that and you teach your own version of that, which has been even more leaned out and so on and so forth. So naturally, I see it in MMA a lot. You see people from a specific discipline, but people who come from MMA pure and pure, just no bad habits from that sort of thing. And again, you start building a very leaner game. And again, like the purple belts,
yeah,
for example, like leg locks and stuff, they can say, "Oh, it's not proper jiu-jitsu," whatever bullshit you want to come out with. But the dated brown, black and brown belts who are respected but over respected, they get found out. But
yeah,
you can huff and puff you want, but you're playing the same thing. It's in the rules, unless you're cheating. Like
yeah, definitely.
crack
It's
on.
literally in all the rules now with IBJJF. They've allowed it now, haven't they? Leg
Oh, this is
locks, well,
it.
heel hooks in the IBJJF is it's there. It's legit jiu-jitsu now.
And this is kind of it. This is where things get so much more interesting. And again, these questions get answered a lot more. And I don't know, it validates the whole conversation because you get the whole, oh, they won world, but they didn't win ADCC and this, that, and the other. Saying It's tricky with jiu-jitsu because with football, obviously you have the World Cup, the one body. If you win this, you are the world champion. Full stop. You can
Yeah,
win the down the road open. There, you're world champion of that organization. What the fuck does that mean?
yeah. No, I get what you mean.
So it's
I
very
think
hard.
there's like, I think no-gi, there's clearly a pinnacle now, isn't it? ADCC Worlds is like, you can argue it, like people argue with Gordon that he ain't won stuff, but the ADCC Worlds is like creme de la creme for no-gi. Yeah. Anybody who takes it seriously, that's the goal.
I mean, this is kind of it because everyone's got a fucking opinion. Like it or love it, you either win or you've lost. Full stop. And if Gordon is winning and he's winning these titles, whether you like him or not, even if you don't respect him, full stop, he has won. He is the champion.
Yeah.
He is the man. But this
Even
is
if you don't like him as a person, you've got to respect how good his jiu-jitsu is.
This is kind of it. Next on the Gordon Ryan hour. But this is kind of it like, even like Nicky as well. Nicky's fucking swole as well, but I'm not going to accuse him of any juice, and that's their business. That's all.
He's got very swell.
I remember I saw him in, have you been to John Danaher's before? Henzo's?
I've never been to Danaher's. I met Nicky at Polaris. It was one of the ones in Wales. He was backstage and I met him then. This is when he was a little bit smaller. He was fighting Imanari that night.
I was that one, yeah.
Imanari fought that night. I think it was Imanari. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, I remember I went to the Death Squad place in New York, and it's so fucking hot. You walk in the sauna, it's like even before you get downstairs, it's so hot in there.
And so they're pre-conditioned before they even started training.
I asked John Danaher, like, how do you guys train in this? It's so fucking hot. And he says to me, this is so painfully like, oh, I can't do the accent. This is public, but I condition my fighters by getting them to fuck hot chicks in the sauna. Just pure John Danaher monotone, thinking, fuck me, I don't know how I feel about that. I just feel uncomfortable.
And I stood there just like, sick.
And just see Nicky looking uncomfortable and like Craig Jones and stuff, just sort of like, yeah. I guess so. Clang, I'll pick those names back up. But this is it in itself. So regards of like, I don't know, the way you've sort of developed your competition game in itself, how do you roll in competition preparation versus general training? Are you very much, this is how I'm going to start my matches, this is my game, this is airtight, or is it in the gym, trying new stuff, trying everything, trying different games entirely? Like, what does your comp prep look like opposed to your general training?
General training, I'll have different days for like according to how hard I spar and what I'm actually using. So for example, at Andy's we have like a comp class, which is a Monday and a Wednesday. Like on a Monday, it'll be strictly top game. So I'll pick out the decent guard players and I'll only roll with them. On the comp classes, it'll be like 100% going for it. On a Monday, it'll be top. Wednesday, it'll be bottom. But when I'm not going 100%, I'll always be working on something in particular, whether I'm getting smashed or not. So, for example, like the whole craze with the Lachlan thing and the 50-50, obviously there was a while where everybody was doing that. So I was kind of doing the 50-50 stuff. I then moved on from the 50-50 stuff to a different type of passing that I'm still working on. North 12 now with David and Numa. I'm kind of working on different style of passing now to back takes. So if it's not like a comp class where I'm rolling 100%, which I won't lie, I can't tell you what happens, it's all a blur. I'll always be working on something in particular.
Now, with the amount of training you're doing and that level of like, because it's not just exertion to get in shape, it's obviously skill work. How do you take in that information and how do you develop in that sense? Is it sort of just autopilot, you pick up the mistakes? Is it you making notes afterwards, you asking questions? Like, how do you retain what you're doing as such?
So luckily, I've kind of always had Jay watching over me. So he's been like a huge thing of, he's always watched me roll. So at the end of every roll, he's always telling me what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right. And now I'm training at North 12 a little bit. I've got David watching as well. So say if Jay's rolling, I've got David. But I don't really write anything down. I think it helps where I train so much. So I don't have to wait from like Monday to Friday to think, oh, what was I doing Monday? What was I doing wrong? It's kind of Monday to Tuesday. I can remember what I was doing wrong yesterday. Most of the time, I have a chat with Jay, David, Andy maybe, and say, look, what should I be working on today? Normally Jay, we'll either be in the car or I'm outside, and I'll say, look, am I still working on this today? Is it working? If I'm working on my passing, what was I doing wrong? Which one do I need to hit more? So I think I rely heavily on other people. They have a huge contribution to my training.
There's so much in that I love. Obviously, having someone external looking at what you're doing, matter of fact, this is what's right or wrong. This isn't your perception. This is something, okay, someone more experienced who can guide you, that sort of thing in itself. Obviously, similar game that Jay plays as well, so it helps quite nicely with that. But also,
Definitely.
you being coachable, you accepting that information, you asking the questions. Because a lot of people are like, oh no, he says that, but I know what he means. No, he said that. That's what he meant.
The good thing is, like with Jay as well, he's brutal. So's David. They're both brutal. So if it comes to like an end of a roll, I'm supposed to be working on something, but I'm like slipping. You know, like if you're rolling with someone, you start slipping behind, you kind of slip into your A game, just to get that little bit above. Like, I'll have a good roll in my eyes. I'm like, sweet, that was a hard roll. Like, I learned a lot, whatever. I can come away and Jay will be sat there and he'd be like, that was a shit roll. What were you doing that for? I'll be like, oh, shit, kind of thing. And he's like,
Jay.
look, you need to be working this. Like, there'd be a lot of the time that Jay sitting that side and like, I'll look over and they'll literally be telling me what to hit, kind of thing. So
with a tear in your eye, like, yeah, I agree, coach.
Yeah. Yeah. So I might be think I'm doing well. I might be doing well in that moment, but for like myself a week later, like my coaches know what I need to be doing, and if they see me rolling how I shouldn't be, they know I'm not going to be progressing. So they just tell me how it is.
I think what you've just said there is a lot more profound than I think you realize. That it's not about the role itself; it's the bigger picture of your overall progression. And that thing in itself is so hard to appreciate when you're in that moment of, okay, I'm locking horns with someone I have potential to, win this round, but I need to work on this other area. And having that perspective that it's more important to develop that area than it is to win that round. It takes so much more than just like perspective. It's just everything. But no, it's a lot of respect for that, especially like for Jay's level of engagement with that. Now, with your competing as such, what is your preference as to where you take this now? Is it super fights when they're back on? Is it just big competitions as a whole? Is it just frequency? Is it names themselves? Where do you prioritize your competition at this point?
This year, so we had talks last year, me, Jay, because at the end of last year, I was predominantly training at North 12 with Jay. We kind of had the chat of Nogi Euros this year. Obviously, everything that's going on now has kind of been put on standstill. At Brown Belt, Nogi Euros is probably my number one at the moment. Once I've done that, I move on to Nogi Worlds. Super fights. So super fights really interest me. I do want to do it. There's a few names that I do want to fight for sure. But I think that's all kind of time and a place. It'll happen when it happens. And when I get given the name, I'll always be happy to take it. I think super fights are a bit different because it's literally is like that one shot, one opportunity thing. So like I say, I think it's a huge thing fighting on them, a lot more than, especially when you get to the higher levels, a lot more than people realize. Because everybody wants that name, don't they? But no, I think. Go on.
Sorry, mate. I thought you finished. I don't mean to interrupt. It's a bit of a delay in
That's
certain
all right.
bits. But yeah, where this gets really interesting, the reason I asked this sort of question is because the preparation is very different. Because as much as the conditioning is still going to be there, when it's against one person in particular, you know who you're against. You've got your strategy. You know what their game is. You can work around that. But in a tournament, any Tom, Dick, or Harry at that level can show up, and then it becomes a lot more adaptable. So it was more where your preference in that sort of side thing comes from. So regards of when you have a specific person, say, I don't know, like a Jed, why not, for example's sake, would you prepare for his holes, his A game, his B game, your own game? Where does your focus sort of prioritize when it comes to super fights?
Someone like Jed's a bit hard, isn't it? Like his bottom game's so good, his butterfly, half butterfly kind of thing that come from Ross, I'm guessing. It's amazing. I don't think people realize how snappy he is, like how clicky he is. Have you ever rolled with someone and they're literally like, they got no thinking time? I think you'll find that. I've never fought Jed, so I wouldn't know. I've never trained with him, never rolled with him, but that's what I'm guessing it'd be like. So his like butterfly, half butterfly game's amazing. His rolling Kimuras kind of thing, back takes are really good. So you'd either have to top or bottoms, like your first question, where you're going to be better off. And then once you're done with that, instead of thinking, right, I need to be doing this to escape his game kind of thing, just have it in your head, and your coaches will have it in your head, in their head, their A game, so Jed's A game. But I don't think you can focus on it too much. I think that's where people go wrong. They end up getting scared. You can't base your game around being defensive. If I was going to go in, not just Jed, anyone, if I was going to fight anyone, I wouldn't think, right, like if I was going to fight Matthias Deniz, passing's mental kind of thing, but I can't go into that fight thinking, right, I have to go on top because his passing's unreal. Or if I pull guard, I'm going to have to be so assertive with my guard. I don't think you can go into a match like that. You have to go in with your A game. Don't get me wrong, you have to take their strong points into advance, but I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They panic and they get scared.
It's almost the opposite.
I'll tell you
Go on, mate. I thought again.
One person
Pause. I
that
don't
does
interrupt
really
you.
well of it. One person that does it really well, I think personally, where he's young, is Tyrese. He's just got his purple belt. Young, always wants it. It's that kind of young thing again that we were talking about earlier. I don't think he's ever scared. You watch his highlights and he's always jumping, flying, rolling. Yeah. And I think that's why he does so well against these guys, because he don't care.
And again, this goes back to what we were sort of talking about earlier. It's almost the opposite of what you were saying with, once I get my closed guard, I've won. It's like, okay, shit, if they pass, they've won. And you sort of accept it so confidently that, oh shit, okay, so I'm going to tap either now or later. I haven't decided yet. Or, plan I might do this one or tap here or just say it. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
But you've planned your exit route.
I think a lot of people, when they get that like higher level opportunity against these guys, they panic and I think they get scared. I think that's all it is.
This is a level of respect, isn't it? And this is where you see the purple belts calling, catching these black belts, because this is where you get this sort of, not they see through it as such, but they don't let it overwhelm them. Like the Tyrese, for example, again, competing against brown and black belts, everything else. He doesn't sit there and, well, this is from my perspective, he doesn't sit there and think, oh shit, they're a black belt, I've got to respect him. No, what I'm going to do, most technique works. If Kimuras behind your back, you're going to, either snap or you're going to tap.
Yeah.
Full stop, whether you've got more experience than me or not. So crack on, if it works, it works.
Exactly that. Same thing as well. Shane versus Tyrese. I don't think Shane fell for the flying, jumping thing. He literally went in and just got on with it, kind of thing. It's exactly that. You just can't look into the game too much, I don't think.
I remember Shane talking about that match. It was so funny how frustrated he was, because the first one they had, I think it was what's the one where they have round robins, grapple? What's it called again? It's gonna annoy me. What's it called again? Where it's like round robin tournaments. It's gonna really annoy me. The white and like orange.
Grappling Industries. Is that what you
Grappling
mean?
Industries, yeah. Because he got caught by Tyrese at Grappling Industries with flying triangle, and he was fucked off because again it was like, okay, try to not play with him a bit, but sort of feel him out a bit, and he was fucked off. So as soon as he got that match, he was like, okay, I'm not gonna fuck around, just get this over and done with. Just out of principle, I thought, yeah, I get that. Exactly, for well, like, okay, if I go a bit nice with some people and they catch you, like, you know what? It's not all right. That's not right. That's not right whatsoever. No. But again, this is interesting.
That's the thing, though. Yeah, when you get to that level, like we're talking about, with that kind of level of grappler, there isn't any room for mistakes. You can't do that. I'm going to go nice on this guy. Or when you get to that level, it just has to be, right, I'm going to get this one done next fight.
Definitely. This is why it gets more interesting how you can still develop with this. The nature of, if you're under stress, you're going to use your A game. You're going to do what you've always done. Things are a lot more airtight. And this is where you can start to expand outside of that, be able to release the sort of pressure and be like, okay, now I need to try new stuff, get other areas airtight. Because this is where, like, again, like you're saying there, you're playing guard, you've got your triangles, everything else. This is something you've always done. But what happens if someone else pulls guard? Are we going to do this sort of wicked butt scoot thing? Am I going to have to pass a guard now?
Yeah, definitely. This was the turning point in my career. This is basically, I say career, not much of a career at the moment.
Early days,
Yeah, I fought on Battle Grapple at purple belt again. I ended up getting ankle locked in that fight. But exactly that. This was kind of still in my days of, I was gi only. If I pulled guard, I was pretty confident. literally we slapped hands and this guy sat. I'd fought on battle grapple like twice already and won by closed guard. So it's kind of like, I should have really thought about it. Literally we touched hands and this guy sat down. And like, you watch it back, you can see it on my face. I was like, oh no.
Now what?
Kind of thing. Yeah, literally. I was like, oh, what do I do now? So no, that definitely taught me that you can't just be one dimensional.
This is where things get so tricky in itself. So there's a few questions I've got for you in the same kind of conversation. So what does your ideal comp training session look like? Is it specific positional rounds with the circumstance? So you're like, okay, you're now 2 points down. You need to get these points back in 30 seconds, round robins, just keep on doing that. Is it just positional work? Is it just constant rounds? What is your ideal competition class look like?
I won't do positional stuff unless I'm fighting a certain rule set. So if it's like EBI rules and you go from spider web or back or something, that's the only time I'll really do positional stuff. Again, falling back into that, I don't really want to start with someone on my back if they can't get there in the first place, kind of thing. It's like the whole thing with Craig losing, everyone's like, oh my God, Craig lost. It's like, yeah, he lost in overtime because he started on his back. It's like, big what? Couldn't get there in the first place. So not really positional stuff. I really enjoy doing like the high intensity stuff, like you said, like give you 20 seconds, first to point or first to take down or you're 2 points down kind of thing. I love that kind of stuff. But normally it's just rolling. We'll do rounds upon rounds upon rounds upon rounds. And that's all it is really. I love doing that.
Now with training partners, I'm going to say belts purely on resistance level opposed to the specific names and stuff. Would you rather roll with other brown belts for similar kind of level? Would you rather roll with purple belts so it's a bit less, but you can still put it on? Or black belts you just get smashed so your defense is prioritized? Is it mixed? What was your sort of preference for that side of things?
If it was for comp training, it would be brown and black belts. Because if it was, so say lead up for Euros kind of thing, if I was 3-4 weeks out, I'm only going to be really doing my A game, maybe a B game if it really goes wrong. And I don't really want to be working that on purple belts, no offense, like I was one a few months ago. I don't want to be doing it on purple belts that I'll be making moves that I think are working, but realistically, they're just kind of letting slip because they're a lower grade. I want to be doing it on well-seasoned brown and black belts because if it's working, then I know it's going to be working on people my grade, if that makes sense. I don't want to give myself false hope, basically, on that my stuff's working and it's actually not. So
well, this is why that question sort of. This is why that question kind of it highlights that as such, because again, it's the room for error you can get away with, and also your confidence, and also practicing things. Because again, if you're trying a new move you learn on a black belt, have fun trying to get it to work. Whereas if you're smashing the white belt, okay, now blue belt, now purple belt, and you start building it up and that sort of idea. But also competition, you can't fuck around. Like, I'm not gonna learn these new, like, I don't know, half guard, like whatever it is, in a competition that's like a world title. Let's put that to one side. Let's just, put the Bernardo Faria DVDs to one side. Let's just crack on with what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's like that. It's the in the moment thing as well. It's kind of the when you're fighting, once you're in a fight and you get to a position, it's kind of that faith of, cool, I hit this on whoever, so it must work. Like if you get there, you're going to have full faith that you're in the right position because you catch it on the better guys you're rolling with back home, kind of thing. So I think it helps in that way as well. When you start catching stuff, it helps in competition. It's exactly like we were talking about before. Once you get there, you're kind of like, well, this is over.
I know how this goes. And this is a huge thing in itself. Obviously, the whole idea with obviously where you were talking about at the start about how you teach about these different positions, reactions, so dense in one position. Once you get there, there's only so many options you've got. I say this with some of the guys I do one-to-ones with, that right now, if we start without any grips established, you have infinite amount of options. If I have you in a quarter guard, half guard, whatever, you've got limited options. If I have you with your arms over your head and your legs exposed, you've got a lot less options. And this kind of idea that, okay, once I get you in my position where I've got you, which way do you want to get tapped? Do you want the arms? Do you want the choke? Which you want to get comfy?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, an interesting. Right. Sorry, mate. Go on. With obviously different levels of competition, everything else, and experience you've got. When it comes to comp day nerves, anxieties, obviously went from being fun and a bit sort of carefree to now it's a bit more serious. What is your
Yeah.
sort of method for dealing with that sort of nerves, anxieties, you know, the build up on the day itself?
One or two ways really. So I found normally the way that works best for me is a lot of music on the day, just kind of in my own bubble. I don't really like to speak to people too much. So after the fight, don't get me wrong, I'll speak to whoever, whenever. I'll be the nicest guy in the world. But kind of before, I don't really want to be rubbing shoulders with who I'm fighting with. I don't want to be chatting to them before, kind of thing. I'd rather be sat there, headphones on, like half hour, 20 minutes before, getting some rolling going backstage, kind of thing. Yeah, I think that's the best way that works for me. Yeah, I've tried it before where I go in with no music and just chat to people and try to forget about it, and it just kind of just screws me on the day.
Yeah, some
So
people
yeah,
are
definitely
one side
music.
or the other. They're very much like either too serious and they burn themselves out getting too stressed out, or they're too relaxed and don't switch on.
Hmm.
And it's finding that kind of middle ground with it. Now, here's a bit of a, I don't know, is it trivial or like post weigh-ins? Because again, with jiu-jitsu, you haven't got the nature of a day before weigh-ins. Normally it's like an hour before or so on and so forth. Obviously
Yeah.
cutting weight and everything else. What is your post weigh-in snack? Like, okay, we're rehydrated now. Before I get in the mats, what is your like? Do you go in fasted? Do you go in like, okay, a couple of gummy bears? What are you saying?
Nah, Jaffa cakes. Jaffa
Eh,
cakes
no
are the
hesitation.
one. Yeah. Yeah. I love them. Yeah, definitely that for sure.
The conviction in that. There was no hesitation, no thought. It's like this is from the heart. This isn't even like even thought of yet. I love it. There's a few things I was going to say as well. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, can make this a bit of a staple question. Like, what is the smallest change you've made that's made the biggest difference in like your game as a whole? Do you think? It's a tricky one.
Smallest change that's made the
So like
biggest difference.
something like very insignificant. Like, okay, maybe being more point orientated in a round. Is it maybe perspective on things? Is it, I don't know, the way you prepare, the way you rest, something like that. Something very like, it's almost insignificant, but it's made the biggest sort of, I don't know, paid the most dividends. Like the, I'll explain it. It's like the most return on
I
investment since Leonardo da Vinci's next sketchbook, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I did. So a few years ago, I don't know where it come from. Maybe Cameron from the academy, because he just shouts so much shit when we're rolling. Kind of last 20 seconds to 30 seconds is like, if you're comp training, it's like if you've been going 100%, last 20 seconds you'd be better be going like 150 kind of thing. I think that's made a huge difference. Mental wise more than anything, because you could probably push that pace the whole round if you wanted, but mental wise, if you're, I don't know, under side control or you are on top and you need a sub or something, that last 20 seconds, I think that's made a huge difference to my mindset.
A sort of urgency, a sort of, you know, getting the fuck out of there when you need to. Because a lot of people lack
Yeah,
that, especially in
definitely.
jiu-jitsu, you see a lot of it where like they accept position and sort of think, okay, I've established this, I've been
Hmm.
swept. Like, no, get the fuck back up. Make that an advantage. It's not two
Yeah,
points, it's an advantage. You stand back up and you get your own takedown. Get on with it.
yeah, for sure.
And as
Yeah, I
well,
think that's made a huge difference.
regards of like belt by belt kind of how your perspective on jiu-jitsu has changed as a whole, where you are now, relatively fresh brown belt, what is your current, I don't know, reference point to what you'd say to your purple belt self? Like when you first got your purple belt, what's the biggest lesson you learned through that kind of stage?
Nothing's going to come overnight.
Mm.
When I first got my purple belt, I was kind of like, right, this is where it gets serious. I need to win everything. Yeah. And I went on like little spree at purple belt winning. And then when I got my first loss at purple belt, I took it really bad. I was kind of like, oh, that's it. Like my jiu-jitsu career's over. Yeah, literally.
Throw the SIA down, just cry.
Yeah, I'd tell myself, look, you're gonna lose and stuff. Everybody does, but you just got to get on with it.
But this is sort of the point, though, and this is why this question is very specific to you in the sense of this is what you've appreciated certain things. Again, you can get all the freely live, laugh, love quotes where you want, but something that actually
Yeah.
appreciated to you specifically. Again, taking these things personally, because when purple belt as well, you get lumped into the purple up to black categories, the advanced, no geese, this, that, and the other. You get part in the advanced conversation, but you're the bottom rung of the advanced conversation off the bat. And you get the pressures of, okay, you get Shane, you get Jed, all these sort of guys killing black belts. You think, I
Yeah.
guess that's me now, I think. I was a blue belt a month
Yeah.
ago, but I've got to beat the black belts.
Do you know what it is? I've always wanted that, and I've always rushed for it. You get like that Craig Jones story, like he sold his car, went to ADCC trials, won, fucking he subbed a serious guy at ADCC. I've always been like, that's going to happen to me. That is my destiny kind of thing. And where the building block always went wrong, like second, third step in or something, yeah, I always used to get like mega upset about it because it wasn't going to plan kind of thing. And I've come to realize, I'd tell my purple belt self, I'd say, look, it all happens for a reason kind of thing. Yeah, you're on your way. Just get on with it.
This is kind of, it's so personal because it's not just the match. Because people think, oh, it's just a match, you get tapped and you go home. Not really, no. It's, yes, that is what it is, as a literal sense, but it's your years of effort thinking, okay, I'm preparing to win this competition. And the fact I've come up short due to my own mistakes or whatever else it might be, you take it fucking personally. Like, albeit, it's just a cheap medal. I don't give a fuck. Medals go in the shoeboxes. They don't mean anything, but it's everything.
I think it's that like faith you have in yourself that you let yourself down as well. Like you're so confident before a match kind of thing. You're like, I've done everything I need to. I've trained so hard and everything. And when you come away with a loss, you're kind of like, well, what's going on? I've literally done everything I needed to. And why haven't I won?
And this is it. So what else could you have done? And like you realize loads you could have done, but it's not the point. It's that in that moment in time, that's when push came to shove, you couldn't quite show up. And again, it's then coming back from that. And with that in itself, then after you've had a loss, what is your reevaluation process? Do you think, okay, I'll review that match in like inch by inch detail? Is it we forget about that, we carry on as normal? What's your general, I don't know, after action report sort of thing, post competition?
We always go over the match. We always look at it and where it went wrong, kind of thing. There either be something I didn't listen to from my corner or something I went for and I shouldn't. We always look back at it, but just straight back to rolling. Just need to get back to it.
When you have a loss, are you back in the gym the next day? Is it a week? Do you take time off between these sort of things? What's your general like turnover?
Depends how hard I take it. Generally, I'll try and be back in within that week for sure. You have to. Yeah, if you fall off your bike and never get back on it, you're never going to ride a bike again, are you?
And again, these sort of questions, again, the reason I find these very poignant for people listening who get in these similar situations, because again, you think it's pretty straightforward, get back up, come back stronger, doesn't kill you, sort of stuff. Doesn't mean fuck all.
Yeah.
Until you've been there, until you put yourself on that platform, come up short and have to face your teammates again. You tell me you want to do that. You tell me with your fucking.
Do you know what? That's the hardest bit. I hate going back. I hate it. This is like the thing I hate about losing. I get everyone's trying to be nice. When you get a loss and you go back to the academy and everyone's like, oh, unlucky. Oh, unlucky. Don't worry about it. Unlucky. Literally, like in the moment, I'm like, oh, cheers, man. But in my head, I'm like, dude, don't say this to me. I get everyone's trying to be nice and like, that's the only thing you can really say. But it's not unlucky, is it?
It's just a bit, just don't say anything, just ignore it like it didn't happen, please. That's the best thing. Anyone listening now, next time I lose anything, just pretend you didn't see anything and we carry on as normal. Don't tell me you're sorry.
Literally.
Just ignore it like it never happened.
Yeah, it's literally, that's the thing I hate most, going back to the academy and everyone's like, oh, unlucky, don't worry about it. And I'm like, well, I am worried about it.
Well, a little bit, yeah. I'm only a bit upset, don't worry. The tear stains.
Only crying myself to sleep most nights.
And that's just usual. That's not in competition. That's just business.
Yeah, that's before the fight.
But there's a few other bits and bobs I sort of wanted to go into. Again, we've covered like the pre-competition sort of stuff, dealing with the sort of different ways of dealing with the anxieties, excitement, whatever you want to call it. But outside of that, with your training outside of jiu-jitsu, are you quite one for strength and conditioning, general conditioning? Do you just switch off when you're not training? What's your life outside of the mats?
So in my gi days, I did no strength and conditioning really. Maybe towards the end of my purple belt, I did a little bit. Now I'm doing no gi. I've got a little bit bigger. Probably going to move up to 88 eventually. I've started a lot more strength conditioning with a guy called Tom King. He's a blue at Andy's. We've been doing like a lot of strength conditioning stuff. He's been helping me out. Apart from that, I try look at what I'm eating. I've probably got like the biggest sweet tooth you'll ever meet. So I've always got like a bag of sweets or something, which ain't too good. Jay ain't too happy about that most of the time. He's like, come on. He's like, you need to get out of this habit. I'm like, oh, I can't, I love it. But strength and conditioning has definitely been a huge impact since when I started no-gi. Other than that, not really. I've always been, I think it's taken more effect now because in my lower grades, I maybe relied on talent a bit too much. I was kind of like, some people just take to things and I just took to jiu-jitsu like in the least big-headed way possible. And I think I kind of run out of talent mid-purple and I'm paying for it now. So I'm kind of playing that catch-up game with like my strength conditioning. My technique's always been all right, but maybe like my gas tank, my cardio's not always been so good. My diet's not great, so I've never been fueled properly. I've started looking into actually taking care of my body. I used to get injuries and be like, ah, don't worry about it. Yeah. It's definitely that, yeah.
A common theme through this conversation I really like is that kind of awareness and also assessment and also the action. Because it's one thing to say, I ran out of talent, this, that, and the other. But it's not a case of getting discouraged. It's a case of doing something about it. Because it's all well and good saying, you know, oh, my passing game's shit, but then you just play guard anyway. But to actually fucking do something about it, it seems so straightforward, but hardly anyone actually does it. But like, again,
no.
like you said there, you had to figure it out. You had to make these sort of adjustments and everything else. I don't know what I thought of this. Are you in the UK BJJ Underground on Facebook?
Yeah.
Have you seen the micro adjustments memes about the 2-stripe white belt tapped to a purple belt?
Tapped to purple. I have seen stuff about it. I haven't looked at it too much, but yeah, I have seen it.
I just keep seeing micro adjustments. I can't unsee it. Every conversation is just there, and it kills me. But I tell you, that's a conversation for you. When you're rolling with beginners, how do you roll with them? Do you let them work and play on stuff? Do you just catch them quick and let them know what's up? How do you roll with complete beginners?
Complete beginners, I'll try do something to them. Like first, maybe minute, 2 minutes of the round, I'll try to do something to them that they don't think is possible, kind of thing. So, for example, I work part-time, so I find myself training full-time. Two of the guys at work, like the classic, oh, I don't think you'll be able to keep me on the floor kind of thing. And I was like, oh,
I just see red.
Whatever. They're quite cool about it though. Like, so basically I got some mats, took them to work. We laid them down. My boss and another guy I work with basically did a jiu-jitsu class. I introduced them to it. First, like minute, 2 minutes, I'd either get mount, top crucifix, bottom crucifix, anything like that. Or I don't know, hold them in 50-50 kind of thing. Just be like, this is how dominant you could really be if you're that good at jiu-jitsu kind of thing. Obviously, that's me talking to a complete newbie, but kind of show them how powerful it really is. And then for the end of the round, just kind of flow roll, maybe sweep them, let them get back up, let them pass.
Now, this is why I like that quite a lot, because this is sort of the point, is to highlight the value and the impact it can have, but also show that you show power without inflicting any sort of damage as such. That's a sort of happy medium, because I think the tricky thing is if you're too nice and too flowy, you think, okay, there's nothing there. Whereas if you hold them like, okay, you know what, your arm's right here. If I won, you can't work again because I'm going to break your fucking arm off. But I
said to my boss, he was like, oh, I understand that, like, you must be pretty good, and I understand like you're a high level kind of, and I was like, yeah, I said, but in the nicest way possible, you wouldn't believe what I could do to you. And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, you'll find out when we roll. Like, you won't believe the amount of control I have over your body, or the amount I can move around your body without you wanting me to. I said, that's the beauty of it. I'm not saying I'm good at jiu-jitsu, but when people are good at jiu-jitsu, it's not necessarily moving them, it's moving around them when they don't want you to. I said, you'll be gobsmacked by what people could do to you.
Terrifying. It's absolutely fucking terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
And I think I'd argue and say you are quite good at jiu-jitsu. I mean, you're competing a lot in brown belt. I think we'd go as far as say you're all right. Just a little
I don't know. When you roll with people, like I rolled with Ash Williams.
There we go.
I rolled with him a few times now. Mate, do you know what? I'll throw this out there. I've never said it to him, but I said it to when he come down. He come down to Andy's once, and he always said this thing. He was like, I pass the opposite side that you'd pass because it throws people off. And I was always kind of like, yeah, I get that. Because I watched Craig Jones years ago And he was like, I played my half left leg down. And I was like, from that day on, I was like, that's how I'm playing my half. I was like, I'm going to play it left leg down. And when Ash was like, I passed the other way, I was like, yeah, but this is the way I play guard, kind of thing. I was expecting to catch him off, but literally he like sat in my half guard without a worry, passed it when he wanted to, and I could not put him back in my guard.
But this is the levels,
exactly that.
Spectrum, man.
It was that level of, I went into it too big-headed, like I normally am, and I come away from it like, shit, how can you be that good?
But this is kind of the point, though, and being reminded of that sort of thing. Because again, when you're a couple of third-degree white belt like you were, you think, you know what, I am a savage on the ground. The ground is my ocean. I'm a shark, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, for sure.
And someone who's a blue belt and a bit athletic, you're like, okay, I just got squished beyond all belief. This isn't very nice, and it just keeps on going. And then, like, you know, competitive brown belt, you think, okay. But then you get Ash Williams, probably the best black belt in Europe, I'd argue.
Yeah, for sure. The thing is, as well, like at that point, I was probably weighing like, I don't know, 80, 81 kilos. And I'm not saying he's small, but he fights at the lower weights. And I was kind of thinking, I hate to be that guy, but I was like, I'm a little bit bigger. I might catch him off guard with the way I play my guard, kind of thing. And it was like that reality check of, Jesus, there's some levels to this game.
But that's the beauty of it, though, and how you sort of face that level of, okay, I've been smacked in the face with a bit of, you know, wake up call, but it's so good. Like, because again,
he's like the nicest guy about it as well. I remember I went to his for that ADCC camp thing, and we rolled, and literally there's points in the roll where you'll stop and he'll look at you, and he'll just like laugh, and you'll be like, mate, I'm trying. I remember he let me sit back with his ankle, and I tried putting like a straight Achilles on because I couldn't dig for the outside or whatever. And he literally looked at me and giggled, and I was like, dude, you've got to be another level to have someone hanging off your leg and you're just laughing about it.
In their face.
For someone who's never rolled with him, he's unreal.
You see him on like Polaris and stuff, and like his ankle mobility, like he can lie back flat and his foot goes on the floor. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Like the amount of impact he's taken, I don't know how he still walks, but again, it's just one of these people. If you get a chance to speak to him as well, I've had him on the podcast a few times, and the way he sort of analyzes things is so less is more, but the perspective changes everything. Like, conversation with him have changed my game, and I've never like met him in person or rolled with him. It's just the understanding is so lean in itself. You just get so much from it. Absolutely spot on.
He's a quality guy. In that ADCC camp, he said something, and it cracked everybody up. He was like teaching passing and whatever, and he like stopped, and he was like, I don't understand why everybody in the UK is trying to heel hook. He's like, nobody in the UK can heel hook. And Ross was sitting in the room, and he like scanned the room, and he was like, maybe apart from Ross, but the rest of you is like, nobody can heel hook. Just try and pass. But it was like, it was mad.
But this is where Ash has sort of got that beautiful sort of style of both. And the reason I'm saying that is, obviously it's not Ash Williams out, but here we are. But the fact his defense is there, and he says that, because the people who normally say that aren't, you know, they try and play around the rules or don't do it. He's been against the best of the best, caught in these horrible positions. You know, he looks him in the eyes like, yeah, it's all right.
There's a few times when he fought Tom last, you're kind of looking, you're like, oh my God, Tom's got to be so deep, kind of thing. And Ash's face is just like blank. He's just like, cool. Do you know what? His mindset's literally like, it's cool, I'll pass eventually.
Imagine that confidence at that level. But yeah, oh man. There's one more thing I was going to ask. Again, there's so much sort of stuff. So, general blanket question: advice to day one beginners going into jiu-jitsu, not necessarily for ADCC dreams or just hobbyists, just whoever. First day in jiu-jitsu, what would you give someone's advice?
If you want to get better, you have to be consistent. Not consistent to the point that you're going to be there 6 days a week giving it your all. But if you want to get better, you've got to realise you've got to turn up like twice a week, and you got to be there in the session. Sometimes you get beginners come in, they kind of, you're teaching, and you can see that they're like daydreaming off kind of thing. And I'm never going to be that instructor that's like, oi, look at what I'm teaching. Like, if you don't want to look, then cool, that's your fault. But got to be consistent. And when I say consistent, I mean like in the session. You got to be there, not somewhere else.
And for someone who competition day in the bullpen, your teammate who's shaking like a fucking shitting dog, and they're trying to get their composed together. What do you say to them? What's your like principle to say, okay, but if you don't remember anything else, remember this? How would you?
Everything's done.
Mm.
Everything's done. Everything you've done to lead up to that day will then show itself on the mat. If you haven't worked hard enough in these weeks leading up, it'll show itself on the mat. But hopefully, if they're my training partner, they know they've worked hard, so they'll take that as, cool, I've worked hard, it'll show itself. Everything's done. That point of when you're stepping onto the mat, there's nothing more you can do.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time, my friend. Where can people find you on social media?
No, thank you very much. At Connors BJJ _.
Fantastic. Be sure to check them out. Also, Fisticuffs _podcast for any questions, any suggestions. Obviously, we've got the merch launching. We've got the rash guards on the way. We've got the shorts, got the masks, expanding the range. Look out for that. And thank you to our sponsors, the English Hypnotist, Rico Clothing, and the People's IT. So we're back again because there's just a gem we've just realized. So when we're talking about the podcast in general and the sort of format of, picking people's brains, this, that, and the other. And then Connor drops this in quite nicely. So there was a seminar with, who was it again?
Lachlan Giles come to Andy's and did a seminar.
And with that in itself, then, so nature of these sort of things, you tend to cover their expenses and then the overheads for this seminar in itself. But where was Lachlan staying that night? Did he have anywhere booked in particular?
So he finished the seminar, or just after, or whatever. He was like, "Oh, is there any hotels nearby? Like, I need a hotel to stay at." And literally, I jumped at it. I was like, "Dude, I got a spare room at mine. You come stay at mine. I'll make you dinner. Blah blah blah." He's like, "Let's do it." And he was like, "Oh yeah, cool. Like, I've got a hire car. Give me your address, and I'll drive over." Like, sweet. Give him my address. Hopped in my car. Started driving home. And literally, that drive home, I was like, "Dude, I've got this." Was like before his ADCC run, so I was like obsessed with him anyway. I was like, "Dude, I'm about to sit down with Lachlan." And we sat down that night, and I reckon we spoke for, I don't know, 3, 4. We stayed up till about 12:30 at night, just chatting about jiu-jitsu, and it was amazing.
That's fucking mental. Like, regards of that in itself,
Yeah.
fair play for him to go to a complete stranger's house. Say, okay, cool. Well, I guess it's like an Airbnb.
I don't think he's got much to worry about, does he?
Imagine Lachlan in a street fight, just sits down to like 90-20, whatever it is, and then 90-10, sorry, and like gets reared inside to that and the other. But when you're picking his brain like that in itself, then like, what is the question you'd ask him? Like these sort of seasoned competitors. This was the initial start of this conversation. Like, you get the creme de la creme of the jiu-jitsu world. You get the Craig Joneses, Gordon Ryan's, whoever. What is the first sort of questions you ask them? Is it preparation? Is it how they do the sort of the mundane things? Is it how they focus? What is the questions you'd ask your, I don't know, icons?
How they train, how often they train. So I'd ask Craig, like, how often he's training, kind of thing. Strength and conditioning wise, like, I'm obsessed with that because not quite replicate it, but if you can get as close to, you'll be well on your way. But the first thing I asked Lachlan, I used to have this obsession. I don't know why, because we got some good guys in the UK. But the first thing I asked Lachlan is, do you need to train at a world-class academy to be world-class? So, like, if I want to be a world champion, do I have to move to the States and do I have to be training at Unity or Henzo's or somewhere like that, Marcelo's, JT's, like somewhere in New York, basically? I said, is that the case? Like, if you want to be world class, do you have to be surrounded by them? And he said, no, basically. He said, if you want to be world class, you'll make it. Like, you'll make do with what you've got and you'll make it happen. And I think, well, it's true, innit? Look at Ross, Ash. Like, I'm not saying Craig, exactly, yeah. I'm not saying their academies aren't world class because they are now.
Yeah, but like they're already established names. They're already established sort of,
yeah.
That and the other.
But no, that was the first thing I asked him. Do you need to train at a world class academy to be world class? And then straight up, he just sat there and he was like, no. And I was like, oh, okay.
There's an interesting premise in itself, and where I've sort of had similar conversations with people like that. Ash specifically is quite good for this because again, he trains with the same people quite frequently. His brother as well. Like again, this is very much people their games, but the way he gets world class isn't going through the mundane things. It's proactive, asking questions, understanding things, specific stuff. Again, it's getting so much out of the assets you've already got and being so proactive. And one thing Ash said to me, which just stuck to me so prominently, was you don't get the grades in school for just showing up. Attendance is a minimum. It's the effort and the input you put into your development, which gets you the progression. I think, fuck me, that makes a world of difference. Because again,
Yeah,
like,
too
you know, as
right.
well, like grading, if you just show up, that's not enough. As the minimum, you have to get better first. And that's not the same thing.
Do you know what? I had a little bit of time off at Blue Belt anyway, but I spent, I don't know, a little bit more time at Blue Belt because when it comes to the grading, basically, I didn't get my purple. And I basically said to Jay, I was like in the nicest way possible, why not? And he said, your attitude sucks, basically. He's like, you turn up 10 minutes late every time. It's like when you're training, you're only playing your A game, like you're smashing people great, but you're not learning. And that was kind of like the changing point of what we were speaking about earlier. But exactly that, I was only turning up. That was like the only good thing. And I was even turning up late. So my attendance wasn't even perfect. So
And again, like where this conversation gets very misinterpreted is people saying, "Oh, these jiu-jitsu schools where you tick your boxes, you show up, pay membership, and you eventually get your belt for showing up on time, being all nice and pretty." But no, it's not the point. It isn't about just showing up in this. It's about, okay, you're showing the respect and the effort and the conscious effort that I want to make sure I'm here on time. I want to make sure I'm developing. Because again, it's very easy, very superficial to think, okay, I'm there enough. I train regularly. I smash people. Ergo, I'm beating
yeah,
people. I should get the belt. But
yeah,
it's bigger. And again, goes back to where we started this conversation on that kind of self-assessment and doing something about it. Because you could have easily turned around, had a bit of strop, said, "No, fuck that. I submit everyone. I'm better than everyone. Fuck off." And you go to some like small
no,
gym and then you smash all them. Like, yeah, I'm hard as nails.
yeah. It's not how it works in jiu-jitsu, is it?
Again, it's longevity, isn't it? And that's where the world class sort of level sort of becomes more attainable because you're taking in that
Yeah.
information, you're making these adjustments. But yeah, we'll wrap up again there, unless you've got any other like gems you're gonna save for after recording.
So
All right.
Lachlan thing, that was the only thing.
All right.